And here we are in 2013, so we're about a year later. And look at our apartment. Sometimes when a hard, big change happens, it seems like it's never going to go away. It seems like the way things are right now are how they're always going to be, no matter how hard we try. I like that this game has this change happen a year later, because sometimes that's as little time as it takes. Sometimes it does take more. We're not going to pretend it doesn't, we're not going to pretend it never happens, but not always. And I like seeing that here. Oh, we've been more places. Look at this. We've been Paris, Rome. We've got our books out. Our books are getting top billing as they deserve. London she went to as a kid. Been to Switzerland. Our girl's been busy before bed, I know, but I mean, it's a DS. It barely counts. We got a stand for our ukulele. We got a stand for our ukulele. Okay, this is actually bad. I'm an insomniac. I should know if it's a bad idea. So we'll put you in the office, where you can be a relaxation point slash, distraction, which is probably what will happen if she's anything like me, but Oh, she's teaching herself to play guitar too? Our girl is so cool. No, we need you inspired. And I know you have multiples. So I'm gonna have one in the office and one in the bedroom. That's right. There we go. That way every time we walk out the door, we remember we are an adventure. She colored her minifig! Yeah, as she should. There we go, in case we want to make something. So I'm also looking at this is not a conducive room to doing D&D in. So I'm thinking we're gonna do some shuffling around real quick. Actually, if she's doing it remote, we'll leave it there. But we'll leave all her resource books in the office. There's that. In case we need to remind best dragon in this dungeon. And then we got Mama Hen. Little Egglet. Mama's twin. Hatchie. That's it for this room so far. Bup. something else I notice. Is that... Now this might be a stretch. Is this an Animal Crossing reference? Because that looks like the Animal Crossing logo a little bit. And they've worked in a bunch of other sneaky references so far, so it's not completely out of the realm of possibility that this is happening. But if it is, that's a cute little touch, and it's subtle, which is something I like a lot in nerd spaces, is when it's definitely the thing it is, but the only way you'd know that is if you were also into that thing. Icy Pat? Icy Hot, rather. And see, here's where you start to see the pain management come in. Now, I want to say, because I've brought it up a couple times, needing a lot of pain management or needing a lot of anything to make sure that you're your most functional self is not a bad thing. When I highlight these things, it is not to say, oh, look how unfortunate, how sad, how strange this is. It's intended as the opposite. It is intended to acknowledge and normalize it as part of the conversation. Because that is a lot of people's everyday reality. So having those there and having someone verbally, I don't know, maybe this is just me projecting because I've gone through dealing with my own limitations. Not physical, but other kinds. It's always helped me to hear someone else note the things that I noticed. Especially back when I used to do a more physically labor-intensive job. I really needed that pain management quickly, and on my worst days, it was the most difficult thing was when it was put away or just generally disorganized. So I would be in a lot of pain trying to find it and put it back where it belongs. We got a cute little cosmetics bag. Put that there, put that there. There. So this nice little alcove. Go. No, I guess this isn't really a hangable sweater. I guess the weight of it would warp the neck a little bit. So that's fair. Which, if that's the reason, that's a really nice attention to detail on the game developer's part. Because in a lot of games like this, a lot of the developers don't think of that sort of stuff, which this game obviously does if you look at the way they do things. But things like heavy fabrics do have a tendency to warp and stretch over time if you're not careful. Especially in the instance of heavier fabrics. So having a sweater you absolutely cannot hang, and that the game will not let you hang, is a really good way to represent that, actually. Oh, that's an art kit that goes in here. That's right, my bad. I like all the cute flirty skirts she's got going on. They're so nice. I like that she's experimenting more with her personal style. She has this entire time. But it just hits a little different now. As part of the glow up process and the recovery process, it hits different to see her experiment than it did in the time before she was dating Mr. Tech Bro. That's right there. Right there. Oh, it's an oil votive. That's nice. Right there. Ooh, fancy bra. Much more fancy than she normally does. And that's the other thing, is that you can really get a taste for what this person's tastes are as the game continues. So that when something deviates, it's right there for you to see, and it's something that you can acknowledge for yourself and go, well, I wonder what's going on there. And it's just what I love about this game is the visual storytelling. It's having you draw your own conclusions of who this character is and what they're into and what they believe in, based only entirely on visual context. Which, because it's being framed through this perspective, through the perspective of you being the unpacker, forces you to sympathize with her and take the most generous interpretation. Mr. Pig's been fixed! Look at him! But yes, it forces you to take the most generous interpretation of the character because it's putting you directly in her shoes. Because I feel, especially with fictional media, and honestly, sometimes with people we develop parasocial bonds with, we don't always take the most generous or fair or honest interpretation of a person. This is especially in the case of fictional media, I feel. That people will take the worst interpretation they can of someone and boil them down to their lowest, darkest moments and make them just that. Which, as a habit to be formed, has a tendency to make it harder for you to actually connect with people authentically, or connect with the world around you authentically, for that matter. which, when you're consuming media where you feel yourself feeling compelled to do that, it is important to take a step back and say, how is this impacting the way I'm viewing the rest of the world? Now, I understand that if you follow my TikToks and you just saw my video about how you can consume complicated and uncomplicated media uncritically all you want without it saying anything about you, that is and is not what I'm talking about here. What I'm talking about in this specific instance is if you start to note that you start assuming the worst of people, places, and things on a consistent basis, that is worth inspection, and it's worth interrogating for yourself why you feel the need to do that, and where do you do it the most frequently. So I like, as far as unpacking goes, that it takes away some of that. It makes it harder to do that subconsciously. It ends up being a conscious choice for you to do that if you do that. And no one I've seen consuming content about Unpacking Simulator has an uncharitable reaction to that, which I feel wouldn't have happened if we had a third-person perspective of this character. It lets us have authentic conversations about growth and change. So yeah, I do feel that her impact with this guy, because we saw some traces of, now whether or not he believed in it or if he just liked the aesthetic, we don't know his story, we only know hers. I feel that she picked up something that resonated from him from that. And that's something I like. Oh yeah. Pig Doodle goes up here. More Pig Doodle. Yeah, these are the children's books character. Oh, I'm very excited about this. Our big book. Okay, so she's got a notepad in here. She's got a notepad in... Is the living room or the bedroom that I left one? Now we need one in the bedroom. We have... Okay, we're fine. We can put our extras in the office. Did she fill them? Probably. But if she's anything like me, she'll find space. So it's okay if she filled these ones already. These are bookends, I think. Oh, that's pretty. I'm a cat person, so automatically this is one of my favorite ones. Yep, there we go. D&D party's going up, guys. Got a reminder of her adventures that she needs to keep having. The basket of bits and bobs. Mine's down there. Go. That way every time she stands up it is eye level and she can see it. Gotta keep track of time. Second. Very important. Keep the Coptic markers. Oh, she's got some pastel ones now. She's experimenting with different kinds of color. I like that her marker collection, along with her other supplies, as you'll notice, slowly expands over the years. I feel like it's a very accurate interpretation about how a lot of creatives' crafts develop over time. Because you don't, as a creative, stay in one spot forever. You don't stay with one medium, one color scheme, whatever. You change. And it's a good thing you change. I think if you had told 14-year-old Caitlin, who was just getting into art, anime, and everything else, she'd been into anime from far earlier than she should be. Let's full disclosure. But if you had told 14-year-old Caitlin, who was very gothic, very punk, was not super duper into fashion, that she would be doing stuff in pastels and other more jewel tones. Jewel tones to pastels. Colorful, basically. But if you had told her, that's right, get your grip strength back, that she would be working in these colors, and she would be working in the 1940s to 50s, little proto-feminist Caitlin, who doesn't fully understand what feminism is yet, she would have a fucking fit. But especially if she saw that my art style has slowly devolved less from anime into more learning to draw off of Dior fashion sketches, she would not be thrilled. I think she would be impressed, but she would not be thrilled that it was essentially her a decade or two down the line. And that's okay. We impress 14-year-old Caitlin through different means. By doing the stuff that she would be too freaking scared to do because she hasn't lived enough life yet to know. And I feel like, from an interpersonal level, I think that's why a lot of people get afraid of changing or developing their art style, is they're afraid of this theoretical accusation of I think that the reason that a lot of people stagnate a little bit in their art, or they don't develop past a certain point, or they don't try something new, is because they're simultaneously afraid of looking stupid, and they're afraid that, well, if I change this about myself or my art style, or this about me no longer aligns, was it ever even real? The answer is yes. For the you that existed in that moment that you did those things and you sought out this art style, those parts of you were very, very real. And as creatives, I feel like we have to learn that it's okay if who you are now is not who you were 5 years, 10 years, 15 years ago. You're allowed to change. Your art is allowed to change. Your art should ultimately, at some point, change. And going to keep hammering this point because it's important. And that's okay. It's good. And I bring it up from a creative perspective because that's the part I know the best. But this goes for anything. Plumb anything about yourself that you didn't realize a year ago, 2 years ago, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, that you just didn't know. It doesn't mean that anything you did while not that person doesn't count or it wasn't real or any of that. It just means it doesn't align with where you are now. And if it helps to think of them as an entirely different person, go ahead and do it. Not on an accountability level. If you did something terrible that you need to make recompense for, obviously that was you that did it. And you need to own that and you need to work through that. But don't avoid growth just because you're afraid of what it says about you that you grow or that you changed. And this is especially prevalent for people like me who've gone through the things that might make that more difficult than it necessarily needs to be. You're allowed to be different. You're expected to be different. Anyone who looks at you from the stage you're currently at and expects you to be the exact same person that you were prior to this point in your life, and the last time that they knew you especially, gained something from you being that version of yourself. Not always, obviously. It could be that they've been hurt by this previous iteration of you, and that does deserve to be acknowledged as a possibility. But quite often, especially if you've been through these specifically dark times with other people, it's that they gained something from you being that version of yourself. And it's okay if they don't have access to that resource anymore. One thing our protagonist here did learn, fortunately very quickly, more quickly than many, is that what she... And before I continue that thought, I want to continue this previous thought. There's nothing morally wrong, inherently speaking, with aligning with one aspect of a person but not something else. It doesn't make you a narcissist, doesn't make you a manipulator, doesn't make you anything. Unless you actively try to force someone to be that person so that you can continue to get that resource out of them. That being said, what I like about the protagonist and what the protagonist learned, again, very quickly, is that what she got out of the relationship and what he was getting out of the relationship was not equivalent. It wasn't good for both of their mutual benefit. And so she decided to cut it off because it was no longer healthy for her. So now we're in 2015, and look how cozy, it's raining. Look how cozy our home is. There's succulents! Oh, I need to get more succulents for the house. I need to find a way to do it so that the cats won't... Well, I had succulents in my last apartment. It should be fine. But I need to do it so that cats will be safe. But look at our display shelf! And we have a proper couch. Oh, this is These don't look like our boxes. These look like different boxes. And look, we made space for this other person. We made sure not to do to them as had been done to us. We said, no. If you're coming in here, I'm going to make room for you. I don't know how well you can see it in the back. Let me try to tilt my camera a little. But way off in the back, that shelf above the Keurig used to be full of, you know, alcohol and liquor and things like that. When I explained I didn't really drink, my partner turned it into a coffee/book bar for me. And it was the sweetest gesture anyone had ever done for me. You guys are sitting like that. No, you're not. That was my bad. I shouldn't have touched it. There we go. But it was the nicest gesture anyone had ever done for me. So, I hold a lot of people to that standard. Look at this. We have a nice monitor now. We make sure they have access to their laptop. Nice throw pillows, which is how you know it's a lady. My partner made a lot of jokes about the fact that I came in with a bunch of pillows. Yeah, of course I did. I like to be cozy. We're gonna make bread. Be the coziest couple in the... Oh, someone's gonna hit a shin. Oh, we made sure she had her own bureau just to be safe and make sure she felt comfortable. Yes. They need to sit together. It's where they belong. Long boy. Oh, where are we gonna put the long boy? Right there. Yeah. Okay. Protagonist. We gotta make sure there's room for them and that this is organized so they can easily find their stuff. This isn't just about you, this is about them. Oh, she's a fancy lady. Okay. So the anti-hero thing is definitely hers then. It's what she's into. Now if I remember right, and I'm going to feel real silly if I edit this and it turns out I am wrong, but that exact bra I think was in the last one, because it was a new experimental bra that didn't look like her other ones. And I'm just speculating here. I have no way of confirming this one way or the other, obviously. But I wonder if she forgot it. Now these are about 2 years apart, so it is a little bit different, but it's worth considering. Oh, she's a note taker too. I love this dress. 1 second. Look at that. That is so cute. I love it. Oh, I'm so happy for our protagonist. Look at the upgrade she's experiencing. Life changes that should ultimately come for most people in some form. Understand that's on purpose. I feel that we kind of let these changes happen, and they just happen. We don't take a moment to think, oh wow, this is such a big, nice change. This is such a huge life change for me. And the thing is, some of it I do think is a little bit of moral hand-wringing. If I think this is great, what if I'm saying that the rest of it was bad, which is not what it is. Some of it is bad because some of life is bad. Sometimes life is bad, and it's okay to acknowledge that sometimes life is bad. But if you're going to acknowledge that life is bad, you have to be willing to acknowledge that sometimes life is really good and that a really big, good life thing happened to you. And it doesn't have to be a new partner. It can be a new job, a new living situation. You've heard me hyping up this person's life changes constantly throughout these streams. But whatever your big better is, own it and verbally validate how great it is that that happened. You deserve at least that much. You deserve to hear someone, even if it's just you, say, wow, this big thing that happened that I never thought was going to happen happened for me, and I'm happy about that. I deserve it. I understand. Believe me, I understand. What a big step I am describing. Some people spend their entire wellness journey, I guess we'll say, trying to get to just that point of being able to say that they are happy for themselves. But if, like this person, if, like our protagonist, you want to live a creative life, a life where you create things and you make things, you show refractions of yourself for a living, you have to be happy for yourself. You have to learn to be proud of yourself. And once again, from experience, I understand that's terrifying. I will never tell you it's not terrifying, 'cause it is. But what I'm not going to do is sit here and follow up the thought of, that's terrifying, with, and so you shouldn't do it. I'm going to follow that thought up with, so how do we make it less terrifying? How do we make it more actionable? And you do that, or at least you start doing it, by focusing on the small. Hey, this protagonist in this game I like did really, really well for themselves. They made growth changes that I did not anticipate I would ever be able to make for myself. Because once you say that out loud, you then have to reflect on whether or not you didn't achieve any of those goals that you were talking about for a completely separate, in this case, fictional person. Cheering on others makes it easy to cheer for yourself, too. When you see the worth in what other people are doing, it makes it easier, at least a little bit, to see the worth of everything. Oh god, I want her girlfriend's wardrobe. So bad. Once I get more financially stable, I am making her girlfriend's wardrobe because I am in love with it. I am in love with protagonist's girlfriend's wardrobe. Oh, she's an accessorizing lady. She's a fancy lady. Okay. Guys, I think she's exactly in our league. I know she's moving in and everything, but I feel like we have a shot. Darn right, we get succulents in the shower. Alright, we gotta find our drawer. There we go. And this level of space taking up for femme stuff was definitely something I had to get used to when living with my own partner. I came from living on my own, following a bad relationship, as I referenced in my previous video, where he had a lot of not like other girls' ideals about me and who I should be that I had to come to terms with, but that meant anything that marked me as femme, as female, as a lady, he had issue with. And that meant that my stuff had to be tucked away as much as possible, especially if it was feminine. My stuff takes up way too much of our bathroom. I should actually organize that now that I'm thinking about it, but that aside, that is the exact evolution I am talking about. Is it now takes up a lot more of its space than it necessarily needs to the point where I feel comfortable acknowledging that I need to adjust it. That doesn't mean to say that it needs to be out of sight, out of mind. Not at all. But it's finding that nuance, that balance. You're right, that should probably be in the living room. Well, where else is our bread maker supposed to go? You don't want it there. It's not staying there, game. I'm putting it there for a minute. Alright, we're at 2018, so we're about 3 years out from our previous home. And we were talking earlier about big life changes. Look at this. They bought a home. Now, we're going to celebrate all of our wins. Oh, they've been to Sweden. They've been to, I think that's India? If I'm wrong about any of these, please feel free to correct me. I'm hazarding the best I know out of what a lot of tourism tchotchkes tend to look like. And it should be noted with that statement, I am not well traveled. I've been out of the country exactly once, and that was in the last year. Because the right partner can change your life, that's all I'm saying. Absolutely. There is a baby. What am I doing? Here we go. My fictional son is not going to get access to these before he's supposed to have them. You know what? I think I know where this goes in. See, it makes so much sense in my head. And baby room. Little chickies for our little chickie. Look at his little bow tie. And then Mama Chickie. The coolest chick you've ever seen. Someone did not. She's running downstairs because of her packing abilities. Some things never change. Alright, I want Long Loaf on the chair, so he's gonna go there for a minute. Two, four, six, eight. We're up to 8 chicks because of how much it's multiplied. The yoga mat of good intentions. The other yoga mat of good intentions. See, they're made for each other. Why does that... Oh, this was a... See, I spent... That is a lot of wives. I've spent this entire time, every time I've played, thinking this is a sweater. It's not. It's a hot water bottle. I never caught the sloshing noise before. See, I learn something new every time I play. Oh, 9. Yes, exactly. Like my wife's an assassin. That's why she needs the hot water bottle. Her muscles get achy from hurting people. It's a lot of core strength that goes into stabbings. That's all I'm saying. I love that lamp. Mr. Piggy got a new ribbon! They're proud parents. They're watching over our son. I think these are copies of our own children. Yeah, these are author's copies. Oh, our girl made it. She's a children's book author and a graphic designer. Look at her. I don't know, I think it's because I'm in my own transitional era right now. But that level of success is making me a little emotional, I'm not gonna lie. Look, she's developing characters for her next one. Oh, yep, we gotta have the wrist brace at the ready. But look how well she's doing. I'm manifesting it for all of us. But we see the same kind of success. up in where it needs a place of honor. Right above our current achievement was our first big achievement. Oh, we've upgraded so much we need to make more room. But yeah, let's talk about that right now. It it can be hard when you're in your own transitionary phase, your own, to use this game, your own parents' bedroom phase of your story, to see this kind of transformation and feel optimistic. It's okay if you don't feel optimistic, and this is just generally speaking. It's okay to feel like you're not gonna get there. As long as you keep working towards it anyway. This isn't some toxic positivity bullshit, it's... I know you were, Luna, this is generally speaking. I'm speaking for me mostly. But it can be hard when you're in your own shitty situation and you don't feel like there's going to be an end to it. Or it just feels like a part of a larger pattern. It can feel like you're never going to get out. And the easy thing is to say, oh, well, don't feel that way, don't express those thoughts, don't even think those thoughts. Because then you're just putting it out into the world. And that's an easy thing to say. But in reality, if you just spend your entire time suppressing these thoughts, you're never going to get anywhere. You're never going to do anything because you're forcing yourself to be positive all the time, even when things are looking really, really, really bleak. It is more healthy in practice to acknowledge this is what I'm feeling, this is what I'm experiencing, but I'm going to do XYZ just to continue to get to the point I want to get at. Which is almost quite literally, for me, this office with more sewing supplies. It's the dream. This woman's living my dream. But just because this fictional character got there and I'm not there yet, doesn't mean I won't get there. It doesn't mean that if you see someone fictional or real succeeding, it doesn't mean that you won't. And that's the challenge thought you need to continue to have when you're going through this. Is just because someone else got it and I don't have it yet, doesn't mean I won't get it at all. I think one mantra from a slightly more nuanced villain in musical theater history currently that's been helping me is Aaron Burr from Hamilton, where in Wait For It he's talking about how he's the one thing he can control in this situation where everything's kind of fucked up because they're in the middle of a war and everything else. And that even as he's seeing Hamilton succeed, that doesn't mean that he's not succeeding or that he's not trying. His whole mantra is, I'm not falling behind, I'm not staying still, I'm just lying in wait. And yeah, it's the antagonist saying it, but you know, it's been a mantra that's been helping me, especially. No, we're gonna celebrate by putting it in the baby's room. There we go. And there we are. Oh, the baby wasn't born yet! But that is going to be the end of the stream. I love this game. Every time I play this game, I see or learn something new. Something that always touches a chord in me. And if you're looking for more content like this, where we dig in a little bit deeper and we see what we can learn about ourselves or the game itself by thinking critically about some of the things it talks about, absolutely feel free to follow and stick around. But thank you for playing Unpacking with me. Bye, guys.